All right, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video, and I'll go over the correct answers. So for this factoring, you're going to factor it very similar to an x squared minus 9x plus 8, but you're going to have to use an x cubed because you have a 6 and a 3 here. So you're going to do minus 8 and then minus 1. Now both of those will factor further because they are differences of cubes. So you're going to do x minus 2 and then x squared plus 2x plus 4. And then x cubed minus 1 will factor as x minus 1 times x squared plus x plus 1. And so this would be your whole factoring for today. For the math knowledge question, it asks about which of the following is a fixed cost. Well, that's when you're looking at your cost function. The fixed cost is the part where your y-intercept occurs. And if you look, your y-intercept occurs at 30, and it's in thousands, so your y-intercept occurs at 30,000. Now, some of your fixed costs would be if you have to buy a building or rent a building, if you have to buy any machinery, or you have to have any insurance for your business. So those are all some fixed costs. So all of those for whatever business they needed to do for their mouse pads cost $30,000. For the constant production cost per mouse pad, that would be maybe the supplies that you need to actually make the mouse pads, such as the ink or the materials or something like that. But whenever you have a business, you've got some things that are fixed costs and then some that are a variable cost. Okay, so we are looking at lesson 112 today. 110, I'm sorry, 110. We're looking at the graphs of arcsine, arccosine, arcsecant, arccosecant, arctangent, and arccotangent. So all of the inverse trig graphs. Okay, so you're just going to have a lot of drawing mainly on this lesson. Hopefully you'll understand them after this though. So this is kind of the graph of sine. It's actually what looks like a graph of sine, negative sine. But if we take the inverse of it, that's where you would take your x and y value, or your x and theta value, and you would switch them. So in order to do that with a graph, we have to switch where our x and our theta axis actually are. And so you basically just turn your graph 90 degrees. Okay? And so what I'm circling here is the part that you actually need to draw. So you're going to go from this dot to that dot. You need to make sure that you include your endpoints on your x and your theta axis, okay? So after you graph that, y'all can move on to the next one. But that's going to be the graph of arcsine. For the graph of arccosine, this is the graph of cosine. That's kind of what it looks like. So to do the arccosine, we need to switch our x and theta axes. So we turn it 90 degrees to switch them. And what you need to draw is right here. So we have endpoints here and here, and then you need to make sure that you draw with your graph, those four numbers need to go on there. Okay, so once you finish sketching that, we're going to go on to the next one. So this is the graph, if you look at it, of secant, and I'm going to show you by actually drawing in my cosine. Y'all remember how to do that to figure out if it was a secant or a cosecant? That's the graph of cosine that I just drew. So this is the graph of secant. So to make it arcsecant, we're going to switch our x and theta axes. And so the part that you need to draw is right here. And so you have a dot, and then you have an arrow, and then you have a dot here and an arrow. And this is an asymptote, and I definitely want you to include that because you do need it on your graph. Okay? And then make sure to include your 1, -1, your pi over 2, and your pi for your graph. The next one we're going to look at is going to be the graph of arccosecant. And so that is related to the graph of cosecant, which is the reciprocal of sine. You remember, if we draw this in, it looks like a negative sign, but it is a sine curve, all the same. And so to make it the graph of arccosecant, we're going to switch our x and theta axes. And so the part that you need to draw for your notes is this part here. And you're going to go from this dot here, and then from this dot here. And there is an asymptote on the x-axis, so you do need to make sure that you draw that in. Okay? And then use your endpoints. This is negative pi over 2, and then your pi over 2, and then your negative 1 and your 1. So go ahead and add that one to your notes, and then we'll go to the next one, which is going to be arctangent. So we have the graph of tangent, and we need to make it arctangent, so we switch our axes. And your tangent part is the part that is right here. And so we have arrows on the end of it, so you need to make sure you draw arrows. And then we've got an asymptote here and here, so you need to make sure that you include that in your drawing. And so that'd be your answer, or your graph for the arctangent function. And then the last one we're going to look at is arccotangent. So to make it arccotangent, we take the inverse of cotangent. And we're only going to look at this part. And so you again have arrows, so you need to make sure to draw it. You have an asymptote here at pi, and you also have one on the x-axis that you need to include. Okay, so those are the 6 graphs of your inverse trig functions. The ones that we are mainly going to focus on are sine, cosine, and tangent, arc, sine, arc, cosine, and arctangent. So I'm going to show you some dance moves for those. Hopefully that'll help you a little bit with those graphs, helping you remember them. The other 3 you need to be familiar with, but we're not going to do a ton of those on your homework and on your test so much. All right, so if you look at the graph of your sine, the right side of it is going up, and the left side of it is going down. And so you want to put your right hand up in the air, and then your left arm down. So I'm going to turn around. This is what it looks like for you. You do have endpoints, so you need to have your fists that are closed, okay, not open. You have closed fists to show that you have dots there. So this is what the arc sine graph will look like, okay? So it looks like this. And then you have cosine. For cosine, the right side is at the bottom, and the left side is up at the top. And you do still have fists because you have endpoints. Okay, so this is the graph of cosine. So we've got sine, and then we have cosine. Now for tangent, tangent had arrows. So instead of having fists, we need to open up so that we have hands that are open for our arrows. Okay, so you have your little arrows, and then if you look at the graph of tangent, it's going to look like this. Okay, so we've got our hands open because we don't have endpoints, we have arrows. And it is the top right is going up, and the bottom left is going down. So we're going to do a little dance like this. Sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay? So sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay? We're going to do it one more time. Sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay? So those are the moves that you want to use to help you remember these. The reason I focus on those 3, next year in calculus, those are the 3 that we're going to look at. I don't even think that the book touches on arc secant, arc cosecant, and arc cotangent at all. It only focuses on arc sine, arc cosine, and arc tangent. Those are the 3 you really need to learn. Now you may have the other 3 in your homework, but they won't show up very often. Okay, the ones that you really, really, really want to focus on are arc sine, arc cosine, and arc tangent. Okay, so your dance moves, that'll help you remember the shape of them at least. It may not help you with where they are, whether they go through the origin or whether they're, starting at the origin or what that looks like, but it at least helps you with the shape of it. Okay, so you need to memorize your endpoints and the shape of it and where it actually is on your graph. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Y'all can go ahead and laugh about my dance moves now if you want to. But your homework, you do get to omit number 8, 13, and 14, so make sure that you do those tonight so that we can go over them tomorrow.